So in this video, you don't need to see my face. We're going to do a quick crash course in how to make your chords sound better, how to change chords quicker, easier. A lot of the problems players that are new to playing guitar will encounter. As most guitarists will spend most of their time playing chords, it's worthwhile investing time on this, and it's something I'm sure a lot of early players want to improve and find some help with. First off, you'll need to know how to read chords. I'm not going to cover it in this video. If you don't know how to read chords from either instructions, chord boxes, tabs, notate, or any form of notation, you need to check that out first. We're going to assume you already know how to do that. Also, I'm not going to spend too much time on bar chords, although I will give some tips on bar chord playing at the end of this video. So rattly notes, that seems to be a bit of a problem for guitar players. You play a chord, some notes are not clear, a bit rattly, bit buzzy, maybe they don't come through. Why does that happen? Let's take a look. There's a few reasons why that happens. Firstly, a poorly set up guitar or a guitar faults could give you the problems you'll never be able to avoid with all the best playing in the world. If we're going to use chord of G, for example, for a lot of these little tips and tricks, if you don't know the chord of G, you need to go away and check it out. If you struggle playing the chord of G, I'm going to give you some tips on this as we go along here. The chord of G we're using in our example, it's 3rd fret on the thick string, the bottom one, the low E, 2nd fret on the A string, the D, the G and the B strings, they're all open, and we got a skinny string, fret 3, chord of G major. Now, this finger here on the 3rd fret, you get some rattly notes. First tip is keep your finger close to the fret, not quite on top, but close to fret 3. 1, 2, 3, there's fret 3. Further away, if you listen, rattly notes. As I move it close to fret 3, the note clears up. If I move away, rattly, close to fret 3, I'll get the note nice and clear how I want it. I can get it sounding good back here, but I have to push a lot harder, and none of us want any hard work. We want an easy job. This second finger here, sorry, the next string with the first finger, that was muted because this finger was laying down on top of it, obstructing. So even though the note may be clear on its own, when another finger and another string comes in, it could be obstructing it. So the fault lies elsewhere, something else to look for. So what you need to do here is get the fingers up onto their tips, not flat down. How we can do that is to lower the wrist. As the wrist is up high, you'll notice the fingers are flat. As the wrist drops down low, my hand will kind of rotate up onto the fingers. Another thing that will help with this is having the guitar a bit higher up. Your guitar's hanging down low, you've got to reach round and grab those notes, and that can hamper the hand shape. Having it up high will allow that wrist to be lower, and you've got more chance of being on your fingertips. Each finger then has its own string. Another important part that a lot of people forget about, out of sight, out of mind, is the thumb. The thumb is as important as any of the fingers. In fact, it's doing more work than the fingers. You think about a chord of G with the 3 fingers, it's 3 against 1. 3 fingers pushing against 1. This thumb is having to do 3 times the work. Without the thumb's down here, we can't get the pressure we need. So the thumb wants to be fairly central behind the fingers to get even pressure on all notes. That can play a big part. In fact, that may be the first thing that aches with a lot of chords, where you applying that pressure. If all else fails, there's usually another approach to play a lot of these chords. With the chord of G, we could do quite a simple version, which involves just 1 finger. How does that work, I hear you say? Well, all major and all minor chords only contain 3 different notes. I'm not going to go into the theory here. This is a subject for another video, another lesson. But when we play a chord of G, if we look at the actual notes that are used, there's a G, a B, a D, another G, another B, another G. So there's only G's, B's and D's in there. Just by playing the skinny string and these 4 strings, I've got all those 3 notes there. Quite useful if you've got small tiny hands, especially for very young players. That can be an easy first chord of G. Saying that, it can still work as well for professionals. If you want a smaller, thinner sound, it's just as valid. All of these chords that you might learn on your first few lessons, they will be valid for all of your guitar playing years. Don't forget as well, there's always another way to do it finger-wise. The chord of G that uses 3 fingers. You could use any 3 fingers. Some guitar books, some guitar teachers say play this chord this way. Another one might say play that chord using different fingers. It doesn't matter, you've got to work out what's best for you, and a help from a tutor could probably give you some suggestions, some easy versions that you haven't yet thought of. There's going to be some crazy ways you could do it. Obviously, you've got to think of what's going to become before or after it, and that comes to chord changing, which is probably the toughest job on the guitar and the bit where a lot of people struggle. In the early days, changing chord might be a case of assembling the next chord 1 finger at a time, and you wonder how the experts, the professionals, jump quickly and smoothly between chord shapes. It's several factors. One, obviously experience and time and practice will help. The choice of which fingers you use can assist. For example, a chord of E minor to G could have a common finger between it, helping you to make the change with less effort. Using those fingers obviously requires more time and effort than those 2 fingers. Muscle memory is something that comes with time. What I mean by that is your hands will unconsciously remember these shapes without looking. Imagine typing on a computer keyboard. Do it enough times, your fingers know where to go to find the right keys without watching and looking at them with your eyes. The same thing will happen with the guitar. Again, this takes time, but can quite often happen within the first 12 months. A quick note on bar chords then. Bar chords where you're having to bar, which means cover several strings with 1 finger, can be quite challenging. Maybe some of your first few songs you want to learn, you've looked up on the internet or something, involve a couple of easy chords, maybe the C's and the G's, and then there's an F in there, which can be a stumbling block. To get around this, we have 2 or 3 options. We can do an easier version of the chord of F, which requires less fingers and less effort. As with the G, we could just take the 3 notes that make up the chord of F and play without the need for a bar. A smaller, thinner sound, albeit, but equally valid. Again, this is a subject for another lesson. Please get in touch if you want to know more how to find the alternatives for your bar chords. If you are barring though, one tip I will give you is this bar finger, which is the one that often covers several strings. Keep it close and parallel to the fret that it needs to be at, and have it slightly rotated on its side. The side of your finger is usually straight, even when the inside is bent in the creases. So down the side here, we've always got a nice straight edge. And of course, the thumb plays a massive part, applying pressure where needed across the strings. Further to that, any spare fingers you have on this hand could lay on top for some extra pressure. Any more info you need on that, please get in touch. Bar chords don't appear until grade 3, so they're further down the line, and I would urge you to get comfortable with all of the open chord shapes before even thinking about bar chords. As I said, if you need it to do a song and there's a chord in there which appears to need a bar chord, I could show you something alternative, probably a lot easier, that will allow you to reach your goal. Other substitutes for bar chords could be using a capo, which is using a clamp that goes on the guitar. You may have seen some players use these, and it's effectively doing the job what the first finger was doing previously. It's holding down all those notes for you. Capo use is something not covered in this video. Again, it's another subject for another video. There's so much to chord playing, we can't cover it all in this short video. One final note, and this is probably the most useful tip: don't worry too much about how your chords sound in the early days. Very often you can get away with poor sounding chords. And what I mean by that is if you've got some duff notes in there, when strumming the chord, those duff notes are hidden amongst the good notes. You chord a G, sounds great, even though there's a few rattlers in there, but they're hidden amongst the good ones. Similarly, the hardest thing about playing the guitar is getting quickly and smoothly between those chord shapes. Let me give you an example. I'm going to play a few chords and then I'm going to slow it down and put it under the microscope and show you it was actually a pretty poor performance. So here's the full performance. If I slow that down, there was a moment there where I strummed nothing as I made my chord change. And again, noticeable there, but at speed, it's not discernible. Let's slow it down again. And if I took those chords to pieces, there's a few buzzies and rattlies in there. But keeping the flow going. So the tip there is keep the music flowing. Even if your chords don't sound right, with time they will eventually clear up and sound good. Finally, if you need to know any more, please get in touch for your lessons. One-to-one tuition is the best, where it's a two-way interaction between tutor and pupil. We can see what you're doing, you can see us, and steer you on the right path. Until next time, keep enjoying your guitar and keep working on those chords.